All right, so we're diving into something a little different today. We're going to get up close and personal with a native plant. It's called Camassia scilloides, but you might know it better as wild hyacinth or Atlantic Camas. I think this will be a fun one.
Yeah, wild hyacinth is a really fascinating plant. I think our listeners will enjoy learning more about it.
Yeah, and you know our listeners, they're all about getting the full picture, but they're busy people, right?
Mhm.
So today, we're going to cut to the chase. No need to wade through a botany textbook for this one. We'll give them the need-to-know info on wild hyacinth. Like, why should they even care about this particular plant?
Exactly. We want to hit those key points and really, make them feel like wild hyacinth experts by the end of this.
Exactly. So let's just jump right in, huh? What does this wild hyacinth thing even look like?
Well, imagine like a clump of grass,
Yeah.
right? But it's not grass. These are leaves, about 6 to 12 inches long, maybe a third of an inch wide, kind of slender,
Mm.
and they're smooth with these parallel veins running down them. And the cool thing is on the underside, there's this like really prominent midrib.
Oh, interesting. So it's kind of grass-like, but with this unique feature on the leaf.
Yeah, exactly. And these leaves, they're what we call ephemeral. They kind of pop up in the spring, do their thing, and then by midsummer, they're gone, vanished, like a magic trick.
So it's a spring bloomer then.
You got it. And from this clump of leaves, you get this flower stalk that shoots up. It can be anywhere from like 1 to 2 feet tall. It's pretty slender, and it's usually this light to medium green color. And at the top, boom, you get this spike of flowers a few inches long. It's called a raceme, technically.
Okay, erasing. Got it. And are there any other noticeable features on this stalk?
Sometimes, yeah. You might see these like little bracts. They're kind of like small linear leaves, and you might see 1, 2, maybe 3 of them right under that flower spike.
So the flower spike is where the real action is.
Oh, absolutely. Now, each flower, they're about, say, half an inch to a full inch across. They have 6 of these petal-like things. We call them tepals, and they're usually this beautiful light blue violet color, but you can find them in almost white, too.
And inside the flower, what's going on in there?
Well, in the middle, you've got these 6 stamens, the pollen dudes, and they have these bright yellow anthers. And then right in the center, there's this green ovary. And you know what else?
Right.
They have a sweet scent, like kind of delicate. It might remind you of those Easter hyacinths people plant in the spring.
Oh, yeah, I see the resemblance, but it's definitely not a grape hyacinth, right? Those little blue clusters.
Yep, not at all. Totally different vibe. Now, with the wild hyacinth, the flowers, they open up in a specific way, starting from the bottom of the raceme and then working their way up.
Okay, so it's like a slow, gradual reveal of the flower.
Exactly. Each flower, it only lasts about 2, maybe 3 days. But because they open in sequence, you get this bloom period that can last a couple weeks, even up to 3 weeks in the spring.
Nice. So you get to enjoy those pretty flowers for a while.
Yep. And after the flowers do their thing, they turn into these seed capsules. They're small, like a third of an inch, kind of three-sided. And they're full of these tiny black seeds, shiny too. And the whole plant, it comes from an underground bulb and has these fibrous roots.
So it's a bulb plant, like tulips and daffodils.
That's right. And, it spreads mainly through those seeds we talked about.
So we've got a good picture of what it looks like, but where do you actually find these wild hyacinths in the wild?
Well, their range is pretty impressive. They're native to a big chunk of eastern North America. You can find them from South Carolina over to eastern Texas, all the way up to Pennsylvania, even parts of Canada. They're pretty widespread.
Wow, that's quite a range. So they're pretty adaptable then.
You could say that. They seem to like moist areas, those prairies with rich, dark soil, savannas, those open woodlands, especially near streams. They even pop up on rocky slopes and in those limestone glade areas.
Interesting. So what kind of light and soil conditions do they prefer?
Well, they can handle full sun, but they don't mind a little bit of shade either. And they definitely like moist soil. Rich, loamy soil's their favorite. But they can tolerate other types too. Like, they're not too picky. They can handle sandy soil, clay soil, even those limestone-based soils.
So they're pretty versatile when it comes to soil.
Pretty much. They seem to prefer a neutral pH, around 6.8 to 7.2.
Yeah.
And they're tolerant of calcium carbonate, that stuff that makes up limestone. The main thing is the soil needs to drain well. They don't like soggy feet.
So moisture is key, but good drainage is just as important.
Exactly. Now let's talk about why this plant is so cool beyond just looking pretty. It's a real superstar in the ecosystem, those flowers. They're like a magnet for all sorts of insects looking for a snack.
Oh, like what kind of insects?
Bees, tons of bees.
Mm.
Honeybees, bumblebees, even some of the less common ones like cuckoo bees and halicted bees. And you'll see flies buzzing around, maybe even some butterflies and wasps.
So it's a real pollinator party.
It is. Even some bees with shorter tongues, the ones you wouldn't expect to reach the nectar, they'll still stop by for some pollen. It's like a buffet for everyone.
That's really cool. So it's supporting a whole diverse community of pollinators. What about larger animals, though? Do they eat it?
You know, it's funny. They mostly seem to leave it alone. I've heard deer might nibble on the lower leaves sometimes, but overall, it's not a big target for grazers. And the plant itself, it's not toxic to mammals.
So it's safe for those curious critters.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Although, fun fact, Native Americans and early explorers used to eat the bulbs.
Oh, wow, really? So they're edible?
Apparently. Now, besides its ecological role, it's also a fantastic plant for gardens. Those flowers, they just pop. And it works well in different styles, like those meadow-style gardens or even more traditional perennial beds. Plus, if you're into attracting pollinators to your yard, this is the plant for you.
It sounds like a winner for anyone who wants to add some beauty and ecological value to their garden. But what about the practical stuff? How do you actually grow these wild hyacinths?
Well, first off, patience is key. It might take a bit for them to get established, but once they do, they can live for quite a while. And remember, their main growth spurt is in the spring, when it's cool and moist.
So, spring is the time to shine for wild hyacinths.
For sure. And if you want to make a statement, plant them in groups, like at least 3 plants together. It just looks so much better that way.
Right.
And keep in mind, they're only green and leafy in the spring. The rest of the year, they're chilling underground.
So they're like little sleeping beauties waiting for spring to come back.
That's a great way to put it. Now, if you want to spread the love, you can propagate them. You can sow seeds in the fall, or you can divide those clumps, separate those little bulbs that grow off the main one. If you go the bulb route, don't plant the smaller ones too deep. 2 inches is plenty. And the good news is you can buy both seeds and plants.
So they're pretty accessible for anyone who wants to give them a try.
Absolutely. And if you're buying seeds, especially native seeds, you might see this term pure live seed, or PLS. It's basically telling you how many seeds in that batch are actually the right species and are able to sprout.
So it's all about making sure you're getting what you pay for.
Right. And it helps you figure out how much seed you need to plant. No point in wasting money on seeds that won't grow, especially since native seeds can be a bit pricier. And another thing, a good PLS means less chance of accidentally introducing weeds into your garden.
So it's a win-win. You get more of the plants you want and fewer unwanted guests.
Exactly. And if you're into restoring natural areas, using high-quality native seeds with a high PLS is super important for getting those ecosystems back on track.
Makes sense. Now, sometimes it can be hard to tell different plants apart. How can we be sure we're looking at a wild hyacinth and not some other similar species?
Well, there's this one called prairie hyacinth, Camassia angusta. It's a close relative. But wild hyacinth usually has slightly bigger flowers and a lighter blue-violet color. The seed capsules are also a bit different. They're as wide as they are long, while the prairie hyacinths are longer than they are wide. And those little bracts we talked about, they're less obvious on wild hyacinth, and it usually blooms a bit earlier.
So there are some subtle but important differences to look out for.
Definitely. And one last thing, if you're buying plants, remember that suppliers usually have guidelines, like minimum order amounts for seeds or specific shipping times for plants. They want to make sure those plants arrive in tip-top shape.
So it's always a good idea to check with the supplier before you buy.
Absolutely. They'll usually give you care instructions too, like unpack those plants right away, give them a good watering, and plant them as soon as you can. If you can't plant them immediately, put them in some pots with soil, make sure they get enough light, and water them every day until you can get them in the ground. And generally, you don't need to fertilize established native plants like wild hyacinth.
So, to wrap things up, Camassia scilloides, or wild hyacinth, is a real gem. It's not just a pretty face. It's an ecological powerhouse, attracting all sorts of pollinators. And once you get it going in your garden, it's pretty low maintenance.
Totally. And the fact that it's native makes it even more special. By planting it, you're not just adding beauty to your space, but also supporting the whole ecosystem.
And that's what it's all about, right? So here's something to think about. Where in your world could you use a touch of spring blue and a boost for those hardworking pollinators? Maybe it's time to give wild hyacinth a chance. Or maybe it's time to explore other amazing native plants out there. Every little bit helps.
I completely agree. It's amazing how much impact we can have by simply choosing to plant native species. It's a win for us, a win for the environment, and a win for the future.
Absolutely. Well said.
Thanks.
Well, that about wraps it up for today's deep dive into the wonderful world of wild hyacinth. We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little inspiring.
We did too.
Until next time, happy gardening, folks. And remember, every plant has a story to tell.
And every garden has the potential to make a difference.
You got it.